Hi, my name is Annie Young Frisbee, and welcome to the tutorial on Final Draft 7, the latest version of the powerful screenwriting word processing tool. We're going to be learning about all of the great new features as well as running through some old ones. So if you are new to Final Draft, we're going to start at the very beginning, and if you've been using it for a while, you're going to be learning about some of the additions that have been made for this version of Final Draft. Just before we get started, I wanted to say a few words about the importance of what this screenwriting software can do for you as a writer. I can't stress enough the importance of proper formatting for screenwriters. It's not an option. The field of screenwriting is so competitive right now that if you're turning in a product that isn't properly formatted, chances are your script is not going to get read, especially if you're submitting your script to a festival. Formatting your script correctly will help you get past the gatekeepers that are, like it or not, probably not going to be reading your script under the most ideal of circumstances. Fortunately, Final Draft makes formatting very, very simple. So if you're using this software, you really don't have any excuse not to format your script correctly. The main feature of Final Draft is their Courier Final Draft 12-point font. And this gives you the standard industry 1 page of screenplay equals 1 minute of screen time. And this is why we say, the ideal screenplay should be between 90 and 120 pages long, because most movies are between 90 and 120 minutes, unless you're going to see something like Titanic, which is 3 hours long, so that's 180 pages. But basically, we're working within that range. Courier Final Draft 12-point is also identical on both PC and Mac displays. So 1 page on a PC will also be 1 page on a Mac. And this is really great because if you're working with other writers and you're moving across platforms, it makes it very, very easy to collaborate together. The font has its origins in the typewriters that were used back in the studio days by the secretaries. So you're also getting in touch with a little bit of film history as you're doing this. So now we're going to go ahead and open up Final Draft from the dock. And what we get is the tip of the day, and you can turn this off. I usually keep it on just because you never know when it's going to remind you of something that you might not have already remembered. So today it's telling us that Final Draft supports multiple revision sets. We will be talking about revisions later on in the tutorial. So we're going to close this, and we're going to start with a blank document, Untitled Screenplay. Now, before we start getting into the features of actually writing the screenplay, let's talk about what you've got here with your Untitled Screenplay blank document. And I'm going to close this document. I'm going to go up here to the File menu and open New. And you can also access this by using Command N. And you see we've got 3 categories of stationery: scripts, text documents, and TV templates. When you're working within the professional realm, there are all different kinds of formats that are used by the different TV shows, different networks, different stations, and Final Draft comes preloaded with all different kinds of documents for you to use that will already be pre-formatted the way that they are expected to be. So we can scroll down. You see we've got BBC Screenplay for TV, which is different from the BBC taped sitcom, which is different from the BBC 3-camera show. So if you're working for the BBC, first of all, you're very lucky because you're a working writer, but you also have these 4 different options on Final Draft to use for your BBC show. And we get different kinds of screenplays. I always just use this basic screenplay Final Draft. And I'll double click on that, and it opens up a blank document. We're going to close it again so I can show you some of the other stationaries. And this time I'm going to hit Open Apple N and bring up the dialog box. So you have text documents. You can also write your novel. You can outline your screenplay. You can write a query letter. Basically, Final Draft 7 is a word processing document. So you can, for the most part, treat it like you would Microsoft Word. However, the different stationaries will have different macros already built into them. You're going to find it very difficult to write your novel on the Final Draft 7 screenplay stationery because of all the macros that are built in that we're going to learn about in a moment. If you click on TV templates, you're going to see that we've got templates here for all of these television shows that you'll recognize from watching TV, like Alias, Arrested Development, Boston Legal. And what these have, and let's just open up Arrested Development, which is one of my favorite television shows that I wish I could write for. And you'll see we've got a bunch of text here, episode title, act 1, fade in, and basically what this is telling you is how Arrested Development as a show expects their screenplays to be formatted. And when you're getting to the point where you want to write a spec script for a sitcom or a 1-hour drama, which can be a great way to get work as a professional writer or even get on one of these shows, you want to do it exactly the way they do it. So Final Draft makes it very easy for you to do that. We're going to talk about all of these features later, and we're going to start, I'm going to close this, and we're going to start with a blank document. So we're going to go to New, Scripts, Screenplay, FDT, that's the Final Draft tag, New. Since I basically always use this stationary, I can also hit this button up here, which is the New Document. So we'll close this document and we'll hit our new document, and I get Untitled Screenplay. It's going to default to whatever screenplay I used the last time I ran the program. Okay, so here we are on our new script. So first you have your cursor, just like you would on Microsoft Word, and that's right here, starting at the beginning of the document. You have up here, you have your toolbar, which has your new, open, save, print, spell check, copy, paste, clipboard, undo, redo, bold, italic, underline, just like you would have in Microsoft Word. You get to this next dialog box and it says select element when you scroll the cursor over it. And we get a dialog box that has these different listings of different types of macros that are pre-built into this template. And we're going to talk about these in detail in just a moment. Next over here you have your sizing button, which will let you look at it at 75%, or all the way up to 150%. I find it comfortable to look at it at about 100%. On this monitor, I'm getting to see about a page at a time, and you'll find that as you go on, you'll end up working mostly at the bottom of the page, so it's good to be able to see a whole page at the same time. Next to that, you have these three buttons, which are the split screen function, which we're also going to talk about later. You can split the screen vertically, you can split the screen horizontally, and you can then remove the split altogether. And what we're splitting into, we will talk about later on in the tutorial. So I'm going to hit Enter, and we're going to hit S for scene heading. So scene headings, this is one of the most important elements of your screenplay, is the scene heading, because of the amount of information it conveys to everyone that will hopefully be working on your movie once you sell it to a huge studio and they finance it to the tune of $54 million. Scene headings tell the AD department, the producer, locations, and the production designer very important information about what they need to do to prepare to shoot each scene that you've written. And if you want your movie to look the way you picture it in your head, you need to be very precise about the information that you put here. And we're going to start with the very basic, the first part of your scene heading. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit I on my keyboard. And this brings up the Smart Type dialog box. And it tells me I can either choose INT period or I/E. INT stands for interior, and that tells me that the scene that I'm about to write is going to be inside. If I hit delete and go back, we get three Smart Type options, and these are the only three options that you have for your scene headings, for this part of your scene headings. You do not have the option to choose anything else. Your scene either takes place inside, outside, or I/E, a combination of inside and outside. And that's really only used for a scene where somebody might be going back and forth through the front door of a house and they keep moving from inside to outside, but you don't want to take the time to write a new scene heading. It's just a quick shorthand, and you don't really want to use it for an extended sequence. You just want to use it for a short scene where somebody's going in the door, maybe after getting the mail or something. So we need to decide, is our scene going to take place inside, outside, or some combination thereof? So I'm going to decide it takes place inside. So I can either use the arrow keys to scroll up to select interior and hit return, which then bumps me down into the action section. So that probably wasn't a good choice to do. As we go through this, we're going to be seeing what different keystrokes do within the different elements. So hitting enter within the scene heading element puts us down into action, but it did auto-complete our interior. So let's hit delete. We'll go back And as you see, as we delete backwards, it's going to bring up the Smart Type dialog box again. So what I can do is I can either scroll down or up to get to the element that I want, interior, exterior, or interior, exterior. I can also hit the right arrow key, and that's going to autocomplete and then put me one space away from interior. Or, and I'm going to delete again so we can back up. I can hit the tab key and it does the same thing. So it really depends on whether you want to work with your right hand or your left hand, or what part of your brain is in control at any given moment as to whether you use the right arrow key or the tab key to autocomplete your interior, exterior, or i.e. Smart Fill. Now we're in the part of our scene heading where we're going to decide where our scene takes place, and this is the location section. Again, a very important element. So it could be anywhere. It could be the kitchen, or it could be Mars rover. It could be anything that you want it to be. This is the beauty of screenwriting. When you get to the end of typing your location, you're going to hit space, you're going to hit hyphen, another space, and now you're going to decide what time of day your scene takes place. So interior Mars rover. Now we're going to assume, creatively speaking, that if you're in the Mars rover, day or night in their traditional senses might cease to have meaning. But let's just, for the sake of this exercise, decide that it's the Mars rover, but it's still at Cape Canaveral sitting on the launch pad, if that's where they launched them from. So you need to decide if it's going to happen in the morning, if it's going to happen in the evening, if it's the middle of the night. So let's decide maybe it's the morning. I start to type and I hit M, and it gives me two options in the Smart Type. It gives me morning, or it also gives me moments later. Unlike interior, exterior, or IE, you're not really limited to what you put in terms of the time of day that your scene takes place and what information you put in this part of the scene heading. All that's really required is that the information is specific enough that it's going to tell your first AD and your line producer and all of the other people working on your movie when this scene takes place in relation to the rest of the scenes in the script and what time of day it takes place, because that's going to affect obviously what the light looks like or what kind of clothes people are wearing. So moments later, if you've got a scene immediately before where you've already determined what time of day it is, moments later is going to tell you that it's basically the same kind of day. And that information is going to be really, really helpful for the people that are working on your movie. Now again, I can hit the right arrow key and get to the end. We'll back up with delete, or I can also hit tab, and tab sends me to the next element, which if I go down here, now again, you can always remember what element you're in by going down here, and I'm now in the action element. Action. This is the element where you're going to tell us everything that's happening on screen visually, except for what the characters are saying. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about what should and should not go in your action lines. But the basic rule of thumb is don't write either what you can't shoot or what an actor can't act. So an actor, let's say our friend Ashley, cannot act believes. You can't film Ashley believes. You can't film Ashley wishes. You can't film Ashley wants. You can't film Ashley knows. What you can film is Ashley walks, Ashley shoots, Ashley kills. These are all very active words. Ashley could also blow dry her hair, Ashley could go jogging, Ashley could do Pilates. Anything that you can shoot and then an actor can perform goes in your action line. This is really important because a screenplay is not a novel. You're not writing a screenplay to show us man's internal condition. You're writing a screenplay so that a team of highly trained and hopefully very talented professionals can translate your blueprint into a movie that hopefully will make a killing at the box office. So you need to give these people very precise directions about what they're going to see. It's been said that a screenplay is like describing a movie to a blind person. And that's what your job is as the screenwriter. Your job is to describe every single thing that is going to happen in the story from moment to moment. So you would not want to write Ashley drives to Montana, because I'm in New York, so it would take days to drive to Montana. I don't think anyone is going to budget for Ashley to actually drive to Montana, let alone expect an audience to sit and watch Ashley drive to Montana. And I'm still in action, but if I hit tab, I end up in the character element. I'm going to delete back and show you that I could also return and hit enter and bring up the elements dialog box and hit C to go to character. So here we are, we have character. Again, we've got smart type in there, so if I hit A, I'm going to get Ashley. Now, once the smart type dialog box is open, if I hit delete, it's going to give me this whole list of characters that I've already written about in my screenplay. I've written about Marley, Ashley, Grace, I'm using the arrow key to scroll down, Katie, Johnny, Robert, Deanna, the sisters, Rufus. I could choose any one of these people. And as you can see, as I scroll through them, the light gray changes. And what that means is that whatever I have selected in this smart type dialog box, say it's Mimi, if I hit tab, it's going to put me to the end of the line. If I hit return, it's going to automatically put me into the correct formatting for dialogue. But before we move into dialogue, let's look at what else we can do on our character line. So I'm going to hit delete back. So we've got Mimi, who is in Ashley's bedroom after Ashley drives to Montana. If I hit the space bar after quick filling the character's name, and again I do that either by hitting the tab key or the right arrow key. If I hit space and then I hit shift 9, which gives you the parentheses, the first parentheses, I get another smart type dialog box, and this time it's giving me a couple of options for Mimi's dialogue. VO, which means voiceover, so that means that Mimi is not actually on screen, she's talking over what's being shown on screen. And then you have OS and OC. OS stands for off stage and OC stands for off camera. I really don't think there's any difference between off screen and off camera. If you're writing a play and you want to use OS to stand for off stage, that's something else that it could stand for, but really in screenwriting, OS and OC are pretty much interchangeable. You also have this option to write continued, and you don't need that option because, as we're going to see later in the tutorial, Final Draft will automatically add your character continueds. And that means that whenever you've got a character speaking, but their speech is broken up by action, it's going to put continued. So the actor can look at that and see, well, I've got a line here, but it's continued past this next section of dialogue. And that makes things really easy for the actors. And then you also have subtitle, which is a new feature in Final Draft 7. They didn't have that in the last version of it. So you can, if Mimi's Polish, you can put subtitle and then type her dialogue in English, but you'll know that it's meant to be subtitled. And you probably have an indication at the beginning of your script that, where noted, Mimi is speaking in Polish and it's subtitled in English. So let's hit return. So we've got Mimi subtitled and she's going to have some dialogue. Now, before we put Mimi's dialogue in, we want to add a little modifier to the way Mimi's talking, and that's going to be in the form of a parenthetical. So if you hit the tab key, again, very intuitive, it's going to put you here, and it's even going to give you your little parentheses. Now, in screenwriting parlance, you might hear parentheticals referred to as Rileys. And that's because, and I feel like I've only ever seen this in screenplays, I don't know that I've ever seen it in a novel or ever used it in my life to describe someone, but a lot of times you'll see that characters will say things, Riley. And it's very common, you see it all the time, and once you're alert to it and you read a lot of screenplays, it's funny when you see it. So Mimi, subtitled, says Riley, and now what I can do is I can either hit tab or enter. They're both going to do the same thing. I generally like to use enter because, again, it feels more intuitive to me. I want to go to the next line, so I hit enter. And it's going to put me in the exact correct formatting place for my dialogue. But before we move into dialogue, you don't want to pack your parentheticals with too much action. So you wouldn't want to write in here. I just double clicked it to select it. And what you don't want to write is Mimi, in parentheses, as she goes up the stairs and fixes a bowl of cereal. That's way too much action to put into a parenthetical. That belongs in the action line. You really want to limit it to just something that's descriptive, perhaps smiling. You can overdo it with parentheticals, and this is a very common rookie mistake for screenwriters, is that you put a parenthetical on every line of dialogue. And what you need to remember, keep in mind, is that actors, pretty much like any creative person, they tend to be a bit ornery. And if you give them too much direction, they're going to do the opposite, because they want to show, I'm a good actor and I have my own take on the scene, my own interpretation. So if you give them too much direction, if I have Mimi smiling too much, the actress playing Mimi is more than likely going to decide, well, Mimi has this dark, tortured soul and she doesn't smile, she just sort of smirks. And then all of a sudden you've got a Mimi acting in a way that you didn't really want her to act. So really limit your parentheticals to things that are really, really important to portray. So Mimi's smiling because she's amazed that Ashley has driven all the way to Montana in just the space of a short line. So hit enter, we go to the line of dialogue, and it automatically indents it correctly, so Mimi can say anything. She can just say hello. And if I hit enter, it's going to go back to the action, so we can say Mimi looks around. So there's a little mini scene that we've written. I'm going to go to an earlier scene in my script and show you some of the interesting ways that Final Draft really helps you deal with your characters. So I'm just holding down this button on the right hand side to scroll up. I can also click within the scroll bar and get up to where I want to go. So I'd like to be here in this scene between Ashley and Katie. Katie's sitting in a mud bath and they're making plans for world domination. So I'm going to click to put the cursor right at the end of Ashley's line of dialogue. Perfect. And I'm going to hit return and tab to go to character. It automatically guesses, because Katie's line of dialogue preceded Ashley's, that Katie is going to respond to Ashley's line of dialogue. And this is very helpful. It helps you get through long scenes of dialogue very quickly without having to retype everyone's name or even deal with quick fill. Hit return, tab, return. So that's 3 keystrokes and I'm already ready to type Katie's dialogue. So I'm going to go back and delete Katie because I don't really want Katie to say anything. Again, I got this smart type dialogue. I want to show you one strange little glitch in Final Draft 7 that you have to sort of anticipate for, that I discovered while writing my last screenplay that had twins in it, and I think twins could be creepy if they talk in unison. I have my twins talking in unison a lot. So twins are named Sunny and Tess. So I had Sunny and Tess. So they're talking at the same time in unison. So I'm going to hit enter, tab, unison, enter. Hi there. Very exciting line of dialogue. Period. Return. And now let's say I decide Tess is going to say something on her own. And I have Tess, and I hit return to her dialogue. And Tess is going to say, "You're a big jerk." And I hit return. And now I've decided that Sunny totally disagrees with her sister Tess, and she actually thinks Ashley is a princess. So I want Sunny to say, "You're a princess." So I hit tab. And I get the quick fill for Sunny and Tess because Sunny and Tess had spoken in unison immediately preceding Tess. But I don't want Sunny and Tess, I just want Sunny. And I hit S. And I get this quick fill. Sisters, I could have Stacy, or I could have Sunny and Tess. But I don't want those, I want just plain Sunny. So I type out SUNNY. But now I'm stuck on Sunny and Tess, and I can't get just Sunny by herself. So what I have to do is, before establishing Sunny and Tess writing together, I have to establish Sunny on her own, and it's to load her into the quick fill. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the quick fill in a couple of minutes, but that's just one thing to be aware of, is that if you're going to have characters speaking in unison, you want to establish them as individual characters just for the purposes of quick fill. And we'll get to that in a little bit more detail in a moment. So let's hit enter. So the scene is over. We go into action, and now we're ready to transition to this next scene, which takes place in the rehearsal room. And to do that, I've decided I want to have a dissolve. So that falls into the category of transition. So I hit enter, and I want to hit T for transition, or I could scroll down using the arrow keys, but I'm going to hit T because it's fast. And I go over here, and now you see the cursor is on the right-hand side of the screen. And that is the correct place for transitions to go. What I did was I hit delete, and I got the entire SmartType box. And so already preloaded into this macro are cut to, fade in, fade out, fade to, dissolve to, back to, match cut to, jump cut to, and fade to black. I tend to not really use the transitions because I feel like they take up space that I would rather use in telling my story. I'm also of the school of thought that says there should not be too much direction within a screenplay, and I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail in a moment when we get to the shot macro. When you move into the format menu, Final Draft actually allows you to do a lot of things that would be wrong when it comes to creating a properly formatted screenplay. So let's click on the format menu, and we're going to go down to Set Font. Click on Set Font. It's going to tell you what font we're actually working with. We're working with Courier Final Draft, size 12, and it's black. And down here, it's going to tell you the style attributes. Right now, the cursor must be in a scene heading or a character name because it's all caps. So let's close that. This is good. We should be in Courier Final Draft. Go up to Format, Font, and it gives you all of the fonts that are loaded into the computer. So let's click out of that, and we're going to hit Open Apple A to select everything, my entire screenplay, because I am bound and determined that my screenplay is going to be submitted in Comic Sans MS. And we get this dialog box that says, you should change this from the Elements dialog, but I don't even want to bother with that. I'm in such a hurry to turn my script into my favorite font, Comic Sans, that I'm just going to hit enter or click on yes to bring it up. So wow, that looks so awesome. The problem is that now my script does not match the 1 page per 1 minute rule. And let's scroll down to the end, and we'll see that we're now down here at the bottom of page 15. Well, okay, so maybe I can't do it in Comic Sans, but let's go up here and try Futura. Oh, now I'm like at 15.5 pages. So you can see that even though those are two different 12-point fonts, they're totally different lengths of your document. And as I mentioned earlier, the advantage of Courier Final Draft 12-point font, not only is it correct and correspond to the 1 page of script to 1 page of shooting, but it also looks the same on Mac and PC. And if you turn in a screenplay to someone that is even in what you think is the most innocuous of fonts, everyone's favorite, Times New Roman, it's still going to give you the wrong length, and it's going to strike dread into the heart of the poor scriptreader that has to read your screenplay, because nothing says amateur like a script that is written in Times New Roman. The best way that you can put yourself across as a professional is to only use Courier Final Draft 12-point. Don't do anything else. Certainly don't go in here to the format menu and change the size or the style and make it all outlined or shadow, or change the color or add highlighting. Please don't do any of those things. There is a time and place in Final Draft, and we're going to see this later, where you are going to use colors, but that's for a very specific purpose. Don't put colors in your screenplay. Now you can also do some funky things. Now let's go back, and now you can see with Courier Final Draft we're at the top of page 14. So I'm going to hit Command A and select the whole thing, and I'm going to go up here to the format menu and go to spacing. And it's on 1 point, but let's see what happens if I put it on 2. It's going to make it longer. Oh, now I have a 22-page screenplay. I'm so prolific. This is amazing. People are going to look at this and say, wow, she can really, really write a lot of stuff. Well, people are not going to think that. They're going to look at this and say, she went and changed the spacing on her document to make it look longer because she thinks that she can fool me. And you know what? She can't. So again, don't mess with that. Let's put this back to 1, the way it should be. And the other thing, most importantly of all, do not, under any circumstances, go up here into the ruler and change the indentation because you think it'll make your script longer. People that are reading your script can tell. They know when you're changing the margins, they know when you're changing the spacing, they know when you're doing things to make it look longer or shorter than it actually is. Better to take the time and make your script the appropriate length for what you're trying to do. You're not going to become a writer by trying to cut corners. You're going to become a writer by writing a great screenplay, and mastering formatting is a very key part of that. So let's undo my dastardly indentation. Oh, that's much better. So in addition to SmartType, you also have the option to create macros of your own. We'll go up here to Document, and then we'll scroll down to Macros. We get a dialog box, and it basically, you can use what they've already put in there. Option 1 gives you interior, option 2 gives you exterior, option 6 gives you sunrise, option 7 you can decide you want your scene shot during the magic hour. You get all these options. You can also modify these and make them your own. I've never really used macros because it seems like a lot of work to memorize them, but they would definitely make you go a lot faster. Those are macros. Okay, and put that away. So next I just want to take you through some of the remaining features before we move into some of the really crazy advanced features. So we're going to start with View. And you've got a bunch of different views, and later in this tutorial we're going to talk about the navigator, we're going to talk about index cards, but just for right now you've got 3 different ways you can view your script. Normal view, which gives you just these lines where your page breaks happen. You've got page view, which gives it sort of set off where the page breaks happen. And then you get this speed view, which basically makes it one long document. I like to look at it on page view because I like to see where the pages end. So that's just a preference. Everybody has their own preferences. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm going to just briefly talk about a couple of final tools that you have to work with. And the first is Script Compare, which is a document that can be useful for helping you see what changes you've made. So I want to go to where I've saved this document I want to compare it to. We're going to go to Desktop, Final Draft 7, DTZ for Compare. Hit Compare, select it and hit Compare. So now what it does is it goes through my script and it crosses out everything that it doesn't find in the previous version of my script or the other version of my script. And it inserts things that it finds in the other version of the script that it doesn't find in this current version of the script. And then everything that comes up in black is stuff that's the same from one version to the other. So you can kind of track the changes that you've made very quickly, see what you've left out, see what you've included. Maybe you want to decide that you really do want to have this little exchange between Katinka and Brina in your script, so you can see it very quickly. Let's close that. I don't want to save it. I'm going to scroll up here to a section of dialogue. I want 2 people that are talking one right after the other, so I can show you the dual dialogue feature. So here we go. Let's go back up to our friends Katie and Ashley. Actually, let's go up here to Brina and Ashley. Brina's saying, I don't see why not, and Ashley's saying, where's Katie? I need a sound update. So I think I want them to talk over each other and say that at the same time. Now this is different from talking in unison because they're not saying the same thing. They're saying 2 different things, but I want them to say it at the same time. And we're going to use dual dialogue to do this. So the first thing I need to do is highlight the dialogue that I want to run together. And I can either go up into Format and select Dual Dialogue, or I can hit Command D, and it puts them side by side like that. Now, a funky feature again of Final Draft is that you want to type the dialogue out first and then get to the next line before you do the dual dialogue. Now see what happens if I do dual dialogue here on this Sunny and Tess, although that wouldn't really make sense, but for the sake of example. So we go to Format, Dual Dialogue. But see, it's giving it to me as a whole block, and I'm actually going to have to do a lot to get to write a line of dialogue after that. So it's better to just type it out like I did, go to the next line, your action, they storm off, and then go back, select, and hit Command D for dual dialogue. So you're just making more work for yourself if you don't give yourself that next line before you go in and do dual dialogue. In the document menu, we have some familiar elements, and then we have some new elements. So page layout, here is where you can play with the margins, which I already told you not to do. So I'm not even going to show you how to do it because I really don't want you to do this. You also have the option to change the line spacing. Please don't do that either. You also have this dialogue that says break dialogue and action in sentences. And what that means is that it's going to tell where the end of your sentences are, and it's not going to break to the next page in the middle of a sentence. And that's just helpful for actors or for anyone that's reading your script, so they don't have to carry it over in their head to the next page. Because as I mentioned before, script readers tend to be very tired people, and sometimes their brains can't work that well. I know mine doesn't when I'm in the middle of festival readings. I like things to be pretty easy to read, and this is one way that you can make things easy to read. It automatically does this for you. You don't have to turn this on, it's automatically turned on. And then colors, and this just gives you the background is white, the text is black. That's when the Smart Type comes up, it's in that light gray, and you could change the colors if you wanted to, but you know, I guess that would be a matter of preference. If you could change the invisibles, you could change them in any color you wanted. No one's ever going to see it, but don't change the color of the text, and certainly don't change the color of the background. I've never seen that done, but I can only imagine how horrifying it would be to have to read a script that was written in green type on a red background. So please don't do that. But I don't think you will. I think you're smarter than that. So let's get out of this. Go back up to document, header and footer. Header and footer, it automatically comes pre-formatted to put the page number at the header. So you don't have to change that, and it puts it in Courier Final Draft. Leave it alone. It's perfect the way it is. Footer is blank. Sometimes people put the name of their script and their name at the bottom, and it's a matter of preference. I don't do it, other writers do. There's no right or wrong answer to that question. And if you're in production working with a confidential script, that might be where you would write confidential, do not copy, and that way you could maybe tell if someone has copied it in an unauthorized way. Options, show header, show footer, pretty basic stuff. Okay. Mores and continueds are your best friend because they would be very annoying if you had to type them in yourself, but fortunately Final Draft is very smart and it can do it for you. So let's click on Mores and continueds and we get this dialog box. So for dialogue breaks, whenever we have dialogue that continues to the next page, if we click this box, that means it'll say more, and that's a cue to the reader that the character that's speaking has more to say. At the top of the next page it says continued, and that's just a reminder that what you're reading is a continuation of what's come before. Automatic character continues, and what that does is, as I mentioned before, when a character has a speech that's broken up by action, it's going to automatically put continued after the character's name. Great feature. Now you can also have, for scene breaks, not just for dialogue breaks, but for scene breaks, you can put continued at the bottom of the page, continued at the top of the page, and you can even go to page numbers. This is not that necessary at the writing stage or even at the reading stage, but when you get into production, and especially when you're working with locked pages, as we're going to talk about in a minute, it can be really important to know that a scene continues for 3 more pages, because you might find yourself in a situation where you're reading a very Dialogue heavy scene, say you're the first AD, you're reading this very dialogue heavy scene and you think, okay, it's just a scene between two people, and you don't turn the page because you don't know it continues to the next page. And at the top of the next page it says that these two people turn around and face a gigantic crowd of people who they then mow down with machine guns. And as the first AD, it's important to you to know that this is not a two-character scene, that this is actually a scene that involves hundreds of extras and special effects makeup and all kinds of props, guns, and chaos and all of that. So that's important to know, but you don't really need it at this stage. You could also set the font. Please don't do that. So I'm not even going to show you how to do it. Okay, so I'm going to scroll through the document and show you these mores and continueds. So here we go. We have a scene break, continued, continued. And it automatically put that in. Here's Ashley's got a character continued. Automatically put that in for me. And if I change, if I go and delete Ashley's line of dialogue here, that continued. So it automatically does that for you. It's so helpful. Next in document, we have the title page. So click on title page, and you're going to get this pre-formatted page. And it's already got stuff on there. Name of project by name of first writer. And it's kind of funny when I work with my students and they're emailing their projects around, they won't do the title page, and so I'll end up with 15 projects that are all called name of project by name of first writer. So one of the first things you can do, and it also will help you get into that writer mode, is you go in here and highlight it, name of project. My project is called Delta Theta Zombie, and it's by me, and I'm Annie Young Frisbee. It's not based on anything, so I can delete that. I don't put revisions on here, and you shouldn't put revisions on here at this stage because this is for when you go into development, and it's for the development executives to track the progression of the script. So you don't need to do this for your own revisions. It's only when it goes to another writer. And down here, the same for current revisions by, if you were working on a project for hire with somebody, you would put your name and the date. But for a spec script, something you're just sending out for people to read as a writing sample, you don't want to put that in there at all. And in fact, you shouldn't put a date on your screenplay at all, because you want people to think that even if you wrote this in 1982, it's the freshest thing that they've ever seen in their entire life. And so by leaving the date off of that, that's a way for you to avoid dating yourself. And then down here you can put your name, your address, your phone number, all of your contact information, your representation if you have any, and you'll just want to click enter to put that all the way down at the bottom. And if I keep going, see, it puts me onto the next page, gives me a page 2, so that's how I know I'm at the bottom. So I just hit delete and go back up, and there I've got my beautiful title page. Now to get back to your document, you want to close the title page, and it's not going to ask you if you want to save it or anything, but that's because the title page is attached to your document, so it's automatically going to be saved with your document the next time you save it. So you can just close it. The next feature we're going to talk about is Format Assistant, and that's up here in the Tools menu. And Tools menu, you'll see it's got a spelling checker and a thesaurus. We're going to talk about speech control and reports in a moment, but for right now, let's click on Format Assistant. This is a great feature that can save you a lot of heartache. So what it does is it goes through your script and it shows you wherever you have a rule violation. So let's move this over so you can actually see what's happening. Let's move it down here. Element should not be blank. So I have a blank element here, and the rules that it's working on are written down here. So we'll click Fix, and it just takes it away. Here's another blank element. Let's see what else I've got. Characters must have dialogue. Here I have Rufus, like he's going to talk, but he's not saying anything. So let's fix that. Another blank element. And no more errors found. Fantastic. You can also run this whenever you go to print. It'll automatically run the Format Assistant before you print. Because with Final Draft 7, you can look like you know what you're doing all the time, and all you have to worry about is your story. So let's close Format Assistant. We'll go up here to the Save and Print dialog box is just to show you some of the different ways that you can use these features. So save, it's just like Microsoft Word, save or Command S, save, and it saved it automatically because it's already titled. You want to do save as, I could rename it. You could also save it as a PDF. And this is great for emailing your files to people so that they can't change what they've gotten from you. You send it as a PDF and they can just read it as you've written it, but they can't make any alterations to it. And it's also great for sending scripts to somebody and you don't know that they necessarily have Final Draft. And it's turned into pretty much the standard way to email scripts around. So you should always, when you complete a draft of a script, also save it as a PDF. You can back it up as well. And down here you've got page setup and print preview, which do pretty much the same thing that they do in other documents. And then you have the print dialog box. So I'm going to open that. You could also get Command Print, and I'm going to show you what you can get on the Final Draft 7 layout. You can choose to print all or odd and even pages only, and that's if you want to save paper. You can print revised pages only. When you get to revisions, you'll see what I mean by that, or print revisions in color, and that's so you can see what you've changed very easily. You can print it back to front, and then you can print or not print the title page if you want. Character sides are what are given to actors either during casting or during shooting, and what it'll do is it'll just print what these characters are saying. So the actress who is playing Brina or reading for Brina is only going to get Brina's lines, and that's how they do things with sides. Here's where you can save it as a PDF, or you can do various things to the PDF. So let's close that. And the final thing you can do up here in the file menu is you can email your script through your mail client, or you can register your script, and Final Draft makes it very easy for you to register your script, and I highly recommend you do that. You don't need to register every single draft of what you've written, but you should certainly register your script once it's in a complete enough state, because that's really the only protection you have against getting your idea stolen, which is a sad truth of this industry, that everybody's looking for a good idea and they don't want to pay for it. So let's end that. We're going to really have some fun with the very advanced features, some of which have been updated for this version of Final Draft 7. So we're going to go up here into the document menu, and let's choose Script Notes. In the Script Notes dialog box, you can come up with different cues, and these are just for yourself, and you can hide them when you go to print your script so that they don't print out with the script. But basically, you can insert something that reminds you, hey, go back and do some research on the Vikings for this scene. You can add them, you can delete them, you can change the color, you can change the little tagger that goes with it here. So for example, I want to put a script note here that I actually want to come up with the access codes, but I don't feel like doing it right now because I'm really on a roll with something else I'm doing. You're going to go up here to Document and go down to Insert Script Note, which you can also do by choosing option =. Insert Script Note, and it's going to put this little box right here, so I'm going to write here invent access codes, and I can close it. And now there's my script note, and if I want to read it, I can just double click on it. And it's got an exclamation point in it because apparently this is very important to me. And if I want to get rid of it, I can just delete it. The next feature we're going to look at are index cards. And this is where we're going to learn exactly what you can do with the split panel view. So let's go up here into View, and let's open Index Cards Summary. And it gives us these cards, and as you can see at the top of each card it's got the scene heading for each scene, and it's got the page number. Let's go up. This is the summary view, and as you can see in these early scenes of my script, I've put in notes about what I want to have happen in each of the scenes. So in this first little scene, it's a party, there's a party, I want to show people working the phones. Down here, this is just a little transitional scene. Right in this scene, I'm having the pledges take Marley somewhere. We go into here to Marley's transformation. The sisters love her, they're using her. And I've got these 5 different elements that I want to make sure I use in my scene. So I want to make sure that in this scene in Rodney's, I am conveying that Marley is a rock star, that Marley is selfish, that Grace, that's her roommate, is going crazy, and I want to mention something about orphans and a basement. So this is basically just like what you would do if you have physical index cards. So you'd think, okay, well, what good is this to me? Because, you know, should I print them out and have them sitting next to me? How does that really help me? Well, here is where the split panel view comes into play. So we can either click on it up here, either vertical or horizontal, or we can go in here to view and we can go to split vertically or split horizontally. So let's split horizontally. So now we've got two panels. They're showing the index cards in the summary view. So I want one of them to show that, but I want the other one to show my script. So I'm going to go to Script Page View. And as you can see, it turned the top panel into my script and the bottom panel is now into my index cards. Now I'm going to scroll this to the very top, and then I have to go down here and I have to scroll this to the very top. But now you can see that I can follow along with my index cards with the scenes as they're actually happening. And let's go down here to Rodney's. Let's scroll down to page 2. And we're in Rodney's, so I can actually go through my scene, and as I'm writing it, I can refer to these notes, or I can check back through what I've written and make sure that I've included all of these elements into what I've written. The great thing about the index cards is that Final Draft will automatically update your page numbers for you, so you don't have to worry about manually doing that. Now there's other information that comes in on index cards, and that is the script view. So let's click on that, and it flips your index card. So now it's showing, instead of showing the notes that I've written, it's giving a summary of what's happening in the scene. So let's go to our scene in the DTZ bathroom, which is up here on the top of page 2. So you can see that the text that is in this index card is exactly the same as what's in the scene, and it gives you just a little summary, and it just stops at the top of Deanna's dialogue, and hopefully it's giving you enough information to remind you what your scene is about. You could also change this pane so that it's showing the index card summary, so you could match what's written on the summary with what's happening in the scene very quickly and very visually. So you see we have interior DTZ living room morning, party work the phones. We go down here, page 1, Jesse and Katie work the phones, so it's matching. So we're back to our page view. So now let's do some really funky things with Final Draft. Let's go to the beginning of our document. We don't really need to, but just for ease in viewing. And we'll go up here to Tools, and let's check out the kind of reports that we can run on our document. So we'll go down here to the Reports menu, and we get all of these different options: Scene Report, Location Report, Character Report, Cast Report, Script Report, Script Note Report, Statistics Report, and then Avid XML Export and Script Note Export. So let's run the Character Report and see what it comes up with for us. Select a character. Let's run our report on Marley, who's our main character. Generating the character report for Marley. Marley speaks 27 times, 31%, for a total of 237 words. So she's got roughly 30% of the dialogue in my script. That's great because she's the main character. She interacts most with Grace, which is not so great because Grace is kind of a minor character. She really should be interacting more with Ashley. But this is a small sample. I would imagine in the entire screenplay it would be Ashley. Now here it gives me all of Marley's dialogue listed out by scene number and what pages they come on. And as you can see, I can pretty much see everything that Marley has to say, everything she's doing, and it gives me an idea of how active my character is. And since she's the main character, I want her to be really active. So this is good. We're going to close it. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. So you can save it so you can refer to it. We're not going to save it right now. And we'll look at also the location report and see what our locations are. Sort report by alphabetical order. Let's see what that gives us. Okay. So now it gives us all of our locations and how many occurrences there are. Ashley's bedroom, we've got the Delta Theta Zeta house, we've got Dr. Mortimer's office, how many occurrences and the page numbers, and that's basically what it gives you. So this can be useful, again, to make sure that you are spending time in the locations that are the most important, and it's proportionate to the importance of the location. It's looking at this where I wrote the N, and it doesn't really know what to do with it, but it still puts it in there anyway. So let's close this report, and we're not going to save it. So now the final menu we have is production. So let's click on that and see what our options are. And the first option you get is scene number. So let's click on that and see what happens. Number, renumber, move numbers. We want to number. Element, scene, heading, starting number 1. So let's hit OK. And now you see it pops up these numbers on either side of the scenes. Now, these numbers are not useful or necessary when you're just writing your script for somebody to read. They're necessary when you go into production, because the way that the AD and the line producer are going to schedule and budget your movie is according to these scene numbers. And once you go into production, everything that happens refers back to the scene numbers. It no longer becomes that scene that happened in the living room where they were working the phones. It's scene 1. And everybody knows what you're talking about with scene 1. So now you've got your scene numbers. And now let's go into lock pages. Click on that. Would you like to turn on revision mode? Yes, we'll turn on revision mode as well. We'll talk about that too. So our pages are now locked. Now let's see what happens if I try to make this scene longer. So she bounced downstairs into the swimming pool. Because I'm in revision mode, it's going to now give me my revisions in red. Let's hit return, and we'll say she finds the giraffe and puts on mascara. Let's hit return. Let's tab and give Marley a bit of dialogue. Marley, I am beautiful. Okay, so we've added a couple of lines to our screenplay. Now let's scroll down and see what that does to our pages. Aha! Now we have a page 1 that is actually longer than one page. You see it gives me a little continued as a revision because it just popped that in just now. So now we have page 1, and now we have page 1A. And that means that the pages are locked, and that everything that happens on page 1 stays on page 1. And this is very important for rewrites that happen during production, because you want to make sure that the scene numbers don't change, and you want to make sure that you are not altering the page numbers as well. So when you go to print out a revised page that's now gone on to 1A, the production office will actually print this on different colored paper, and they will pull out the original page 1 and they'll replace it with the page 1A. So you'll have a script that is still 119 pages long that actually could be more like 150 pages long, because it's all of these little bitty 1A scenes. Okay, so we have our pages locked. We're in revision mode. Let's scroll back up and look at this revision that we made. It put dots on the side so you can see that a revision has been made. You might think that's redundant because the revisions are typed in red, but look at how useful it is if I delete something. So it's gone, and there's a dot there to tell me that this scene was changed. Again, this becomes very important during production. I can also go up here to production and select omit scene, and it's going to delete that entire scene, and it's going to tell me that the scene was omitted. And again, this is because we've locked our page numbers, we've locked our scene numbers, and this way the AD isn't going to go, whatever happened to that scene on the widow's walk, and think that she's going crazy because she can't find it anywhere in the script. In fact, she can see that where the widow's walk scene was, there's now an omitted, and that means we're not shooting the scene. So it just makes everybody's life easier. I'm going to undo that, bring it back, and I'm going to go up here to production, and I'm going to unlock all the pages. Yes, I want to unlock page breaks. And it's going to put everything back so that we don't get those A and B pages. I'm also going to hit Command All and clear revised so that we're back to a normal looking document. And let's turn off those scene numbers, remove numbers. Remove all the numbers, yes. So now we're back to this document. You also have this really fun feature called speech control. And that basically reads your script to you and it does all kinds of voices. So you can go up here to Tools to assign voices. And it's going to give you these different voices and let you assign them to characters, and you can preview what they sound like. So you can assign a voice to the narrator, you can listen to what they sound like, and then you hit OK, and then you can go up here to Tools and choose speech control, and then you hit read along, and it's going to read you your screenplay. And it's going to read it to you in that vaguely robotic voice, but that can help you catch typos, it can help you hear how your dialogue sounds. I personally like to print out my scripts and walk around my apartment and read them to myself and do all the voices, because why should the voices in my computer have all the fun? Let's close that. And then finally, we've got this Collaborator. And if you're connected to the internet, you can actually link with another writer who is also connected to the internet, and you can write at the same time together. And this can be amazing for collaborating with somebody else across a distance. And all you need to do is be connected to the internet, and it does everything for you. So that's pretty much an overview of all of the features that you'll find in Final Draft 7. The software really does give you everything you need to format your screenplay professionally and correctly, and really all you need to do is come up with a good story. So I'm going to close Final Draft 7 and then briefly show you an application that comes with Final Draft 7 on the install disk. Over here we've got the Final Draft Tagger, so let's double click on that to open it. Final Draft Tagger, we get this dialog box. So we go to File, Import Script. You can also hit Command I, and we want to go to Desktop, Final Draft 7, and let's pull up this DTZ sample. And what you can do is go through your script and pull out all of these elements. Cast members, which it guesses for you, extras, stunts, vehicles, props. In this scene, banners and posters would be props, so double click on posters. So I want to add banners and posters to my props list for this scene. So I click on props, click add element, choose category. I'm already in the props category, but I could change the category if I wanted to. And let's add banners. And you can see it shows up down here in this dialog box. Now this is a very labor-intensive task to undertake, to tag all of your scripts, but if you are producing your own screenplay, if you're the producer, writer, and director, and you need to generate your schedule and your budget, this is an easy way to do it. Somebody has to do it at some point. Now again, if you get that $57 million to make your big budget movie, Steven Spielberg's producer is not going to ask you to go through and tag your script. But if you're doing it yourself, here's a way that you as a writer can pitch in. If you're a line producer, you can also use this to create all of the elements from somebody else's script. And then when you're done creating it, you can export it to a schedule or export it to XML, and then it can be opened up in a variety of applications. So this is just a fun little program that if you've got a rainy Sunday and you want to prep your screenplay to be budgeted and scheduled, Final Draft makes it possible with the tagger. Final Draft AV is a self-contained, full-featured word processor that is specifically designed for writing audio-visual dual-column scripts. This overview will give you a quick glimpse at how Final Draft AV works so that you can get to work immediately on your AV project, freeing up more time for creativity because you spend less time struggling with formatting. Until now, you had to struggle with existing software programs that may be adequate for normal purposes, but not for audio-visual scripts. Final Draft AV was designed to rescue you from programs that get in the way of creativity. Final Draft AV lines up audio and video columns automatically and keeps them aligned when text is added, edited, or deleted in either column. Due to the nature of writing in a dual column format, Final Draft AV has features that no other programs have, like the Rearrange guideline. In order to keep the elements aligned in columns, there are a few commands to learn which will speed the entry of your text. Final Draft AV contains both Macintosh and Windows programs in one package. Though we will be demonstrating on a Macintosh, the Windows version has identical functionality. Scripts may be exchanged between platforms seamlessly. I will be working today on a script that was created for this tutorial, so I'm going to open Final Draft AV, which I've already installed to my computer and placed in my dock. The program opens and it brings up a blank document. I'm going to come up here to File, Open, and in my Documents folder I'm going to open this file called Hipster XAV. XAV is the extension for Final Draft AV. Open. Final Draft AV scripts are made up of individual scenes or segments. Each scene may be further divided into many shots. As you can see in this first scene, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. Any character or dialogue elements that are associated with a video description element, as you can see, this shot has this character and dialogue element associated with it, will remain aligned when text is added or inserted within a scene or a shot. As you can see, if I add text on this line, and I will just add the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, as you can see the text automatically moved down so that this line of dialogue remains aligned with the shot that it's associated with. Final Draft AV automatically does this for you so you don't have to. Scenes are composed of elements. Elements can have different font styles, all set by you. The elements are video description, which is everything you see in this column. Character, for which the default is all caps underline, as you can see here where it says announcer, or down here where it says hipster. Dialogue, which is all of this dialogue that you've created for your announcer to say, for your hipster to say. And parenthetical, which you can see down here under hipster. We have an example of a parenthetical. Each element can be created via a few different methods. One way is with keyboard shortcuts. And as you can see here in the Insert drop-down, the keyboard shortcut for video description is Command 1, for character Command 2, for dialogue Command 3, and for parenthetical Command 4. If you would like to create these elements in a new scene, you simply add the Option key to the video description, character, or dialogue quick key. You cannot begin a new scene with a parenthetical. Another way to create a new element is by clicking a toolbar icon, which are up here, Insert Video, either in a new scene or within a scene. So insert a scene or insert a shot within a scene. Insert character, insert dialogue, insert parenthetical. And I will just demonstrate inserting a parenthetical by placing the cursor next to the word announcer and clicking on the toolbar icon for parenthetical. And as you can see, it gives me a cursor between a set of parentheses where I can type whatever I would like. And you can also see that Final Draft AV kept your text correctly lined up even with the addition of a new line. But we can also use the contextual menu. You can set the font and style of each element in one dialog. So if we come up here to View Elements, we open up a dialog box where we can then select Video Description, and we can change our font. We can apply the font and size to all of our elements across your document. You can change the alignment, you can change the spacing, the indentation, and all of these other attributes. Hit OK. I'm going to scroll down in my document using the scroll bar to demonstrate the Rearrange Guideline, which is a very important feature in Final Draft AV. The Rearrange Guideline gives you the ability to drag and drop any video text and have it line up with any audio text or vice versa. For example, I highlight and select this video element. While holding down the mouse button, I drag to the line of dialogue that I would like for this to match with. And as you can see, a blue line comes up. This is the rearrange guideline. And using this, I can place my video anywhere I would like to, and I can even split a line of dialogue. I'm going to let go of the mouse button to show you what will happen. As you can see, my video element has now moved to another shot and is now lined up with a piece of dialogue that was previously associated with the previous shot. I did this using the rearrange guideline. I can also take a line of dialogue in the character. I'm going to click the mouse button and bring it up here, and I can now associate that with part of a shot in another scene if I let go of the mouse. Now you can see the crack of the pool cue has become its own shot. Sends the balls scattering is now associated with this particular line of dialogue. This enables scenes and shots to be easily reordered after they are written. This functionality is not available in any other word processor. The rearrange guideline indicates precisely where the selected text will line up when dropped. And let's look at that one more time. I'm going to take this line of dialogue and I'm going to bring it here, and as you can see, the rearrange guideline shows me exactly where this line of dialogue will now correspond. If I let go of the mouse button, you can see it's now lined up with the second part of this sentence, everything that was underneath the rearrange guideline. You can create customized templates that include specific headers, footers, and elements so that you can always begin a new script with the attributes you desire. You can even have the page formatted for a 3-hole punch. We go up here to View and select Layout from the drop-down menu. You see here we have the option for Offset for 3-hole punch, and that will align the left-hand side of your paper so that you will not lose any text when you print on 3-hole punch paper. You can import scripts created in other word processors to Final Draft AV. Scripts may be saved in PDF format so you can email them. File, Save As, Format. From the drop-down menu, you can select PDF format. They can also be exported to teleprompters. Scripts written in Final Draft AV may be used by other word processors via the rich text format. You can also exchange scripts with Final Draft, the #1 selling software for writing screenplays. With Macintosh computers, under the File menu, you can export the script to Apple's Keynote presentation software, so storyboards or QuickTime movies may be integrated with the text. Final Draft AV has a built-in sophisticated spell checker and thesaurus. You can also purchase foreign language spell checkers in British English, French, Spanish, and German. You can register your work with the Writers Guild of America West, even if you are not a member of the Guild. As you've seen, Final Draft AV is easy to use, but you'll need to learn some of its tricks and a few simple commands in order to get optimized use from it. Even though you can dive right in and use it, please take at least a few minutes to read the tutorial section of the user manual before you start your next project, and you'll be up and writing in no time.